the social justice warrior in me is like, $200 for goggles? What? What? Like, swimming is swimming. But yes, thank you, Forum, and thank you, Low Tide Boyz, for encouraging me to at least step into the arena with these things, because this is not, I wouldn't even call this a goggle. They would call it a swim coach.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun Podcast. I'm Chip.
I'm Chris.
This is Annie, and we miss Brooke.
And we miss Brooke. Welcome to Gear Talk, everyone. This is our first Gear Talk show post Brooke. Brooke, we love you.
Gone but not forgotten.
We've got a warm seat for you anytime you want to come back. But the show must go on, as they say in Hollywood and Broadway, and I'm sure other places. And Gear Talk is back, and we're going to talk about Form Swim, Smart Swim 2 goggles, 1 and 2.
The Form goggles.
Form goggles. These things are awesome. We've been using them for a long time. But before that, Annie, we haven't chatted with you in a long time. We have a lot of updates, but I guess first, how are you doing? And tell us about this race you did over the weekend.
What was this crazy race?
It was not a swim run. You really want to talk about this?
No.
It's okay. We need to hear about it, though.
Okay, I'll tell you about it. It was not a swim run, but it was a great adventure. Seriously? I'll talk about it. I'm pretty proud of it. It was Ski to Sea, which is this big, epic 7-sport, 8-person relay race that happens in my town, Bellingham, Washington. And it starts Mount Baker Ski Area, which is at 4,800 feet above sea level. And then it ends on the bay at sea level. So 8 racers starts cross-country skiing on the snow up there. Then the cross-country skier hands off to a downhill skier. The skier runs up the mountain and then skis down it. Then hands off to a runner who runs down the mountain. Then hands off to a road cyclist who bikes 42 miles to the river, who hands off to a canoeist, 2 canoeists, who then paddle another, I think, like 50 miles down the river, who hand off to a cyclocross biker. Yeah, I mean, it's downstream, but it's still epic.
That's still 50 miles.
I might have that exact number wrong, but it takes them over 2 hours. Like, it's
like Lewis and Clark status.
And like getting somewhere. And they hand off to a cyclocross biker, who then bike to the ocean and hands off to a kayaker who kayaks across the bay, rings the bell, and the race is over. So I did it with an all-women's team, and we actually chose to do it without the use of cars, so completely human-powered. So we used our bicycles to get the canoe to the river, get the skiers and the skis up the mountain. So I did my cross-country ski, and I also biked like 130 miles and 7,000 vert. And it was so much fun, and we won. And I don't usually brag about stuff, but I feel like bragging.
Bravo.
Congrats.
You should be bragging.
That's awesome.
Thanks for asking.
That sounds amazing. There should have been a swim leg, though. We all know this.
There would have been a swim leg.
That's all that was missing.
Yeah. We'll email the race director.
Or the canoe.
Yeah. Get out a mile early on the canoe.
Yeah, 50 mile swim down the river. Yeah. There you go.
But for
just get out a mile early of the canoe.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
I don't think you're hearing me. People do that, not on purpose. They fall out of their canoe and they swim for a little while, and then they get back in.
Wow.
Anyway, I didn't do any swimming, but I have been doing some swimming.
Yeah.
In general, because I'm testing this Form Smart Swim goggle, and it's kind of changed my swimming life. But I don't want to let it tell.
Wow. Okay. Whoa.
Contain yourself.
That's some epic.
That's a good lead.
Annie level foreshadowing. But before we get to that,
stop there.
Yeah.
Like everyone to know, I just saved a bunch of money by switching to Geico. Just kidding. New gear updates. Anything that folks are trying. Chipper and I actually had to make a list, because I was like, we got to make sure we hit all this stuff. So
yeah, you guys take it. Okay. I can't wait to hear.
First of all, the most mega news is the Arc Key Omega maximal Swimrun pull buoy. We got our hands on 2 of these things from Arc. It makes I'm not joking when I say this. It dwarfs the Keel Plus in terms of its massiveness.
Literally.
It's like
I
the castle.
it's huge. Yeah.
Wow.
I have been. So we have that. We've been testing. I've done a few swim runs with it. Also, at Attila in a throw money at the problem fever state, we purchased the Arc Thermal Kangaroo Top, which Chris has been leveraging and using.
Yeah, I've been so this is like, you want insight into what Chipper and I just like randomly chat about when we're chatting about Swimrun, just not like recording it.
So like every day.
It's
yes,
it's just
we
like,
want
hey,
that.
how are we optimizing our gear? And looking at the thermal top and actually like holding it, it's pretty an advanced piece of tech, just the way they put it together. I actually like the way the pockets are separated. Has a lot going for it. So we were like, if you can pair that with the VIG, which gives you the maximum range of motion, most flexibility, the most freedom, which is, in my opinion, the best way to experience swim run, which is as little encumbrance as possible.
Yeah.
Pairing that with the VIG has been really interesting. So interesting that I might actually try it out at a race just to really put it through its conditions, because in training it's been really, it's just been ideal. Obviously, it depends on conditions.
Yeah. What are the conditions you've been mostly hitting?
Water temp wasn't anything, I would say 60.
60 with air temp in the mid 50s.
Yeah, mid 50s.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
I wasn't
super hot,
warm,
but I certainly wasn't cold.
Yeah, no, it wasn't warm. And did you wear arm sleeves on?
I did.
Okay.
Do you feel like that thermal top can like move the VIG into more of a like Orno X type of warmth for your core?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I would say no, because you still don't have neoprene on the back of the VIG. You only have it on that front chest panel. So maybe if you took like the Uta, then it's like probably like Orno X double X instead of single X.
Okay.
No, 20.
More to come.
Yeah, more to come.
More to come, though.
Cool.
Yeah, and a footnote on the Keel Mega. It's like they should call it like, you remember in triathlon you used to have like Clydesdales and Athena divisions for I forget what the standard. We had to be like 6'5" or something.
Yeah,
some weight thing. Like if you're a bigger swim runner,
tall, big. If you shop at Big and Tall, probably the Keel Mega is for you.
If you've ever been called Paul
Have
Bunyan,
you guys been using it? I have been called Paul Bunyan. Whoa, that stopped him. I'm lying. I'm actually lying about that.
This thing, Annie, I'm telling you right now, it's like you do not weigh enough to use it. It'd be too much. It'd be too much flotation. I think it's too much for me.
I used it.
Really.
I used it a couple times. I gave it a go. I think it's a little bit too big for me, personally.
Wow.
It's not really the carrying
I've
it
never
piece.
Heard from you.
Finally found his limit.
It's the wedging it, the mounting it in between your legs. It's like really, it's very big. It's too girthy for me.
But honestly, but I do think it is a solution for people who, are maybe or more loaded down, or just like if you're 6'5",
it's probably going to work well
220.
for you.
Like I even think someone like even, I don't know. Just like a bigger swimmer, like maybe someone like Adriel, or one of these sort of like taller, stronger swim runners, like maybe they could rock it. But I think it's great for the right person, but it can be. There is such a thing now as too much pull buoy.
Yeah, we've hit it.
Done it.
It also, when it's up in there, it goes past your knees. Like it's so big, it's like hanging down past your knees.
Now you know how I feel. Yeah, it's not comfortable when the pull buoy does that. Yeah.
Right, and there's an optimal positioning and too much.
This is cool because it sort of seems like now the pull buoy range has developed to a point where you can size your pull buoy similarly to how we size wetsuits, shoes. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got some nuance in there. It's great.
But I would never, as a person who has size 8 feet, I would never race in size 12 shoes. And this is the Pulpoy thing now.
Sound
you
of
go.
But I
ice.
did not think that there would ever be a Pulpoy that was too big for you guys. You were like solidly like, give me more. And that's, we
Give me,
reached it.
give me. Yeah.
Well, it turns out, you know,
We've seen the
we've
limit.
got enough.
We've had our fill on nakedness. I think we'll still bust it out a few times to kind of get give it a little bit. But I've done 2 to 3 hours of swim running in it, and I think I've put it through its paces. I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly used it, I
You
think, for
could-
1 or 2 swims, and I was like, "Yep, this is." Felt like it was like tweaking my back, but I'm also an old man, so.
Do you know
Speaking
somebody
of,
who you can give it to?
Oh, we'll keep it.
yeah, we'll
It's on
keep it.
display.
Okay.
You never
We'll
know.
keep it.
You just never know.
Okay.
If you're tuning in on
You'll keep it.
YouTube, you'll see it right here. This is
It's big.
large.
That's big.
It's a big pool buoy. I have an update. So, for the show, because that's our job here to help inform our fellow swimrun community.
An
I
influence.
I picked up a pair of the new Adidas Terex Speed Ultras, which is the replacement for the Low Tide, the Gear Talk shoe of the year, basically for 2 years in a row of the previous version of the Speed Trail Ultras. These have a carbon fiber plate in them, similar to Super Road shoes. So it's like a super trail shoe that appears to drain really well. I've put in maybe like 30 miles in them. I haven't swim ran in them yet, partly because
You're kind
for
of scared.
$220.
Yeah.
It's like, man, is this happening, or is this happening
They're
today?
how
Really?
much? They're how
$220. They're
much?
$220.
Oh, that's so devastating.
The
We've
non-carbon
gone
plate
from like,
version. What's that?
uh-oh. What'd you
You
say?
there? No, what'd you say?
I'm here. I didn't hear. How much
Okay.
is the non-carbon plate version?
160.
I know. I actually
So there's
froze
2
my body.
versions, but if it's anything like the previous, just hang tight, everyone, because they're going to be 40% off any minute. But yeah, so far, interesting shoe. Definitely runs like a super shoe, bouncy on the recovery phase and everything. TBD on Swimrun, but we'll probably have a whole episode on that one
Yeah.
down the road.
I put them on and walked around, and it was bouncy. I was like, whoa, this is kind of, it was like freaking me out. Like it might be kind of weird on trails. Because it's like
Yeah.
you're like a bunny rabbit or something.
So
or like a
that's how
deer
it feels. If
prancing.
you're just like standing in them, because what makes the carbon plate work is a super spongy foam. So way spongier than EVA, usually less durable, which is why super shoes typically only last like 50 to 100 miles before you got to replace them.
Oh my
If you're just
God.
standing on them, they feel super squishy. But if you're running, it feels much more stable.
Okay.
It's just like, yeah, you just have to be moving.
I mean, I
Have you
want to
run
try
on
them, but I
trails then,
don't
Chris?
burn any of your 50 miles.
No, you're good. You're good.
Chris,
Yeah, you
have
did
you
a-
run on trails?
I've only ran
Mhm.
on trails with them.
Is
Yeah, so
there,
I've done
can
like
you
30,
feel
35-ish
ground?
miles on trails. Pardon? Yeah, you can still feel the ground. They feel great. I've ran in a New Balance version of the trail shoes that have a carbon plate in them. These are way superior to those. I was crewing at this local race out here, Miwok 100, and there was actually a decent amount of people that were racing in them, and that's for 100K, obviously. So they're out there.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So TBD, more on that.
Hmm.
But any
Those
more
sound
updates?
very techy.
Did we cover everything?
I think so.
Keel Mega.
Did you check your list? There you go.
Check it twice. Arc Thermal Top.
Yeah, talked
Super
about that.
shoes.
Yeah, I think we're ready.
We're ready to talk about the form.
Smart swim
That's
goggles.
dogs.
Smart swim goggle.
So we're gonna talk about the only difference between Smart Swim 1 and 2 is the fit.
Some hardware updates.
The hardware update. And the 2 has a built-in heart rate monitor, but the sort of software and interface, it's the same for
Yes.
for each.
The heads-up display experience is the same for both.
Yeah. So the real difference is basically fit and heart rate.
Yeah.
Or
How does
sort
the
of
fit
like
differ?
the V2s are a little bit more sort of curvy.
Yeah, a little bit more streamliney. They kind of like they're a little bit more back further on the eye. Like the eye sockets are a little bit more streamlined, but I wouldn't call
Yeah,
them streamlined.
the strap starts a little bit farther back, not right at the lens level.
Yeah,
Yeah, but those are the big differences.
but it's still primarily, you know,
It's
very
the same
similar.
tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we want to, I think let's just, and Form, was kind enough to send us these, and they sponsored the show for the month of April for their launch. So it was really great. Annie's modeling them
Yeah.
now on YouTube. You can tune in and watch. And Annie, I feel like this is a piece of tech that you would be adverse to sort of not trying out if it wasn't for the Low Tide Boyz forcing you to, or strongly recommending
take this to the lab,
that you take it into the lab.
Totally. You are right. The social justice warrior in me is like, $200 for goggles? What? What? Like, swimming is swimming. But yes, thank you, Form, and thank you, Low Tide Boyz, for encouraging me to at least step into the arena with these things, because this is not, I wouldn't even call this a goggle. They would call it a swim coach.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
You know what? I was
Yeah.
going to save that for the end of the show. In my summary, I'd already thought through. It's like, hey,
Sorry.
it's a high price point,
She stole
but what you're paying for is a coach. You're paying for the coaching that's kind
Yeah.
of built into the whole experience, which $220 for a coach for in perpetuity, that seems pretty.
It's a good deal.
Anyway, that's my closing, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
But let's not stop, because we can say more.
Yes.
So let's talk about sort of the heads-up display piece, and let's focus some commentary on that. I think at first I was kind of like, oh, is this going to be weird swimming? Like, is it going to be hard to see? I would say within like literally a to the wall and back, you kind of like got it. Like I felt like, you kind of figured out the best way to look
like
through
bumping into stuff.
Yeah, just running in the lane line and stuff. No big deal. Smashed into the wall.
Brent did
What
that,
I
actually.
No, that didn't happen. What I immediately found was like how sort of on top of the interval and the pace, I kind of found myself on, I guess. It was like, okay, if I have 10 seconds rest, like it's literally staring you in the face or you're staring at it. And it's like, okay, there's your 10 seconds, get off, no lingering. And it kind of like kept it a little bit more peppy and fresh.
Yeah.
And it definitely, I really enjoyed it elevated my swim experience in the lap pool.
Yeah.
I would. You guys have been, can I just break for a second? You guys have been like utilizing these for a long time. You've talked about them a lot on the show with other people, or like you had the Form show, but just for anyone who's missed the Form goggle and what it is and what is a heads up display, it's like a LED light or something like that. It's not like your phone screen. It's a pretty simple display, but it's lit and it's in one of the goggles and it's just right off to the side. It's in the left eye hole and it's like right off to the side, and it shows your metrics, like any metrics that you choose to see, but primarily like pace and time and stroke rate. You can just the normal swimming metrics, and it doesn't fill the whole field of vision. It's like off to the side, so you can like Chipper, you were saying, your brain kind of really quickly adapts to integrating that into your field of vision. So you're seeing what you need to see for safety, the lane lines, the pool, any other swimmers in your lane, and you can also choose to like glance over at your metrics at any point. And it's like, I feel like how that was designed, when I heard about it, when you guys were talking about it initially, before I had tried it, I was like, that straight up sounds like it would ruin my swim. Like it sounds overstimulating, distracting,
Mm.
especially for the reasons that I love swimming, which again are kind of abstract and not always aligned with the typical like train to race mentality, but swimming's really zen. So I the
Yeah.
thought of having all those metrics staring at me was very distasteful to me when I was thinking about it. But as soon as I put it on, similar to you, it was like maybe not one lap, but then probably half a workout. And then it was like, this is the best. And I am not grumpy about this thing at all.
That's so well said. And swimming was like the last frontier of like, where's this display and metrics and, you know, people riding their bike, like, oh, what's my power right now? Or what's my heart rate? And looking at your watch, like swimming was this like last final frontier that the technology hadn't touched. We're here now with the
Yeah.
Form Goggle. But I would say it's an enhancing factor.
Yeah, because what it did that I didn't expect was like it actually freed up my whole like consciousness and brain and body to actually just
Right.
swim because I didn't have to be
Mm.
tracking laps and
Right.
pace
Yep.
and time
Well,
and all the
it's
things that
fun-
are actually really cumbersome to track in swimming.
Well, I think the irony, Annie, is like, you know, you're talking about, oh, you don't want to ruin your zen of swimming. Like what it actually does, at least for me, it sort of unlocks the zen of swimming
Mhm.
because as you're just saying, you know, I don't have to print something out. I don't need to remember. I don't need to count. I mean, it's terrible in the sense like I'm never going to be able to count yards ever again because I'm just going to be so used to it telling me. And
Yeah.
it's super accurate, incidentally. Talk about that later. But yeah, it's like I surrender to what it tells me. I already know what's in there, so I have a sense of what's coming. But I just rest when it tells me to rest, go when it tells me to go. I found that my swimming is, you know, as someone who's actively not trying to get faster right now, just want to stay basically like swim run ready. I've gotten faster. I feel like I've gotten better because
Yeah.
of all of the things that it allows you to do. And just doing things out of your comfort zone and just again kind of like surrendering to it and just trusting that it's 4,000 yard swim and I'm going to be doing a bunch of stuff. Okay, here we go. Start, and then you
Mhm.
finish when it's done.
Yeah, you finish when it's done. And there's not that like when you have the whole workout written out, you're thinking, okay, this means that I have to do it twice. Like you don't even know what you're doing, but you do it. It's great.
Yeah.
It feels
Yeah.
like it
So-
just forces me to be super present.
Okay, so Annie, you've been like, because there's the app component to this, which is where you configure a lot of, you know, what metrics do you want to see? There's a turn screen, so when you do your turn, a flip turn, open turn, whatever, it can show you again like 15, 20 different types of metrics. You know, what's your form score? What was your strokes, heart rate, pace, whatever you want it to show you, it can show you that. How have you kind of like been fiddling with that to find the right type of metrics that kind of you know, get you in your zen? Was there any experimentation with you finding the right metrics?
I did very little of that because now we're getting into the stuff I hate doing, which is getting into like, how do I change these screens and that kind of stuff.
Oh,
But the metric, but I didn't really have to because the metric that I chose and that I think was just naturally displayed, or maybe I did, actually don't remember, maybe I did go in there and choose it, but was just pace. And
Keep it simple.
if I get feedback on my pace, and like I'm still at a stage with swimming because I am an adult onset swimmer where since I never like really learned stroke economy and all the stuff that you learn when you learn to swim at a decent age, like it's still just groundbreaking to me when I get the real-time feedback of like, okay, I focused on like a high elbow for that lap and it translated it to this, you know, change in my pace, or I focused on whatever stroke element I would focus on. And then seeing the difference in my pace between like just spacing out and swimming versus when I was focusing on a certain stroke element or technique element and how much that impacted my pace for the better. Like, I think because I had nobody watching me, have never had anybody coaching me, I've never been able to have that feedback. And having the feedback, you're like, oh, well, that's obviously better for my swimming. So I'm going to keep doing it. And it just takes the guesswork out of just being in the water not being able to see yourself and kind of just having no idea what would help, right? Maybe you've never been in that position, but like you've heard me over the years, I'm just like, I can swim for a long time, but I, for the life of me, cannot get faster. And this really helped me understand what elements of technique could help me get faster. And I got faster. What?
Well, there you go.
Look at that.
My goodness.
There's the endorsement right there. They have the head coach, which is in the display, and you can choose to enable live drills or live recommendations. So I've like tested this out, and I did my kind of like 300 or 400 warm up, and then it like popped up a screen. It was like, the head coach has some recommendations. Do you want to do that? And I was like, sure. And it's like, oh, you need to work on your head tilt. So I was like, okay. I just clicked like one button, and it changed the screen to be kind of this like Pong style game of where you're trying to keep like a ball in between. So when you turn your head to breathe, you got to make sure. So it kind of gamified that. So if you kind of are like Annie or people, like if you don't have a coach telling you what to do, this will at least give you some good idea of like things to work on.
Dude, and honestly, even if you have a coach telling you what to do, I think the difficult thing about swimming is like you think you're doing it, but you're not because you don't. We don't have senses of us, and that like I'm teaching my kids how to swim, and it's like I'm telling my son like keep your legs straight. He's like, I'm doing it. Meanwhile, it's just like he's flopping around like crazy. It's like, dude, your legs are not straight. Yeah, they are. I'm like, no, they're not. Anyway, so that also happens in adults, not just 4.5-year-olds.
Yeah.
That just happened, by the way, 2 days before recording. But yeah, so actually having that on your face when you know how much to head tilt and it's telling you where to stop, in many ways that could be superior to someone on a pool deck being like, oh yeah, like,
it's just real time feedback, and it's the way it's presented is such very accessible. It's not overly complex. It's like, oh, if I turn my head too far, I saw it flip over the line. Okay, let me not try to do that this time. So I've found it to be helpful.
Yeah, and I've extensively have used the premium feature, which is the training plan. And I think, I mean, this is also going to go in the conclusion. Like, if you're worried about the subscription fee, again, you're paying $15 a month for a coach essentially to have access to these plans. They've been awesome. I've really liked them. They're gamified as well. Like you get a, I don't know,
you got like
star.
A little medal.
Yeah, you get like a bronze, silver, or gold medal depending how many workouts you do. Keeps track of it. Again, all the metrics, historical metrics, all your form score over time. Like Chipper and I compare our form scores probably too often. It's like, what's your head tilt like these days? But from like from the training side of things, I found it really robust and customizable and tons of options in terms of if you just want to do like standalone workout, want to make your workouts, that's easy too. I mean, it just seems like it's extremely well thought out.
Slick. Yeah, for sure.
Like I did, for an example, I also did the subscription premium, and I did the aerobic base build program, which is like a 3-week program. And the goal of the program is to build toward longer intervals on shorter rests. And I just figured, okay, it's a 3-week program, and I think it's based on, you can do 2 to 3 sessions in the pool each week. And if you miss a session, it doesn't like foul up the works. It just like skips you to your next one. It just kind of like calibrates based on how you engage with it. And after 3 weeks, I went to the pool twice a week for 3 weeks and used this plan. And it was like easy to use, fun to use. Like Chipper, you were saying, you just kind of like, you've got your rest timer. It clicks down, you know what you're going to do next, and then you do it. And like you guys, they use in the display a real like thing that touched my heart and soul is that there's some exclamation points in there. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you're on your last leg. Go a little bit faster.
Yeah,
almost
like
there.
There's like a little cheerleader, and I don't want to like set the wrong impression here by saying it's like gamified and there's a bunch of exclamation points. Like, it's not cheesy. But there's just enough like spirit in there and like fun little touches, like this little head pong and stuff that you're like, this is great. Like, it's so enjoyable to use. And after that 3-week program, my my pace per 100 improved by 17 seconds, which I'm saying is like,
17.
you know, yeah, and it's
What?
low-hanging fruit. Like, I just want to be clear, it's very low-hanging fruit. I haven't been
Still,
Wow.
I hadn't been
that is not
swimming
insignificant.
consistently. That is not insignificant. So,
No,
and
That
that's
is not
impressive.
insignificant. I mean, that
but it was kind of, I mean,
amazing.
to be perfectly honest, it was sort of like going from like pretty much off the couch to doing this program for 3 weeks, but still, that's not insignificant. That was really impressive, I thought.
Man, the Bellingham swim run's not
amazing.
going to know what hit it in a couple of weeks. That's for
Course
sure. Once
record
Annie rips
dropping.
that thing up.
No, stop.
So I think one thing to talk about, which is important from just like swim run kind of like as a whole, is the open water feature. So
Swim
Mhm.
straight.
swim straight, which is something that apparently you can use at Attila, you can use it at triathlon races, you know, Ironman, all that stuff has been approved for all that stuff.
USAT stuff.
What it essentially does, it allows you to set a line of sight bearing, and then you just kind of follow that bearing, and then it helps you swim straight. It takes a little bit of calibration, got to look up and down, do a spin, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's, I think for triathlon, where maybe you're only doing one swim, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think for a swim run, it's a little bit more complicated, partly because it costs $220. You don't want to lose the
You
goggle.
don't want to bust your goggles up.
You know, in a race for that, that'd be a bummer. But also with swimrun, so Chipper, so I only used it in the pool, but Chipper tested it out at our last swimrun practice over the weekend, just to see what it would be like to transition, set your bearing, and kind of go to what that does to the swimrun experience. And I will say it works. Like the setting that it will make you swim straighter if you just again surrender to it and just do it. But for swim run, where it's more of like a moving through the space.
Yeah.
Well, Chipper, why don't you just?
Yeah. No,
what
I
are
think
your
that's
thoughts?
a great handoff there. Like, yeah. So we did it, and we were trying. Because we want to see like, hey, is this something that we would use in practice? Also, it's just a cool feature that's available both on the 2 version goggle, and because it's a software thing, they push the update. So if you buy the V1 goggles, you also can have the swim straight feature. So I thought that was pretty cool that they did
super
that
cool.
as well. So we went in there, and
Apple would have never done that.
no way.
Very generous.
Yeah, so there is a little calibration, which I would imagine you could probably do before the race, but I think from like, there is a little manipulation that you have to do within the headset to like kind of get it to that. So there would be a little bit of setup, but it takes a little bit of time to kind of look up and sort of have it kind of like lock in, and then you can kind of get going. So I found in practice during a swim run, it was really broke up the sort of the swim run flow that we're all, hope to achieve within a swim run event. And it really kind of, it made it a more disjointed experience. And I think when I was swimming, and I mean, I obviously you can kind of like train this out, but like I kept kind of poking my head up to sight still. And I'm like, okay, I was sighting on like 310, but now I'm kind of going this way, and I kind of didn't lock in my original bearing. So like there was a little bit of user error there, but overall in general, I felt like for a swim run, it's probably not the best experience, but I would see for a triathlon, if you're like, hey, we're starting in the water, there's my big orange, Dorito chip in the water, lock it in, race start, go. Well, I think that's like perfect way to use it.
Yeah,
and it would work well.
I would say though, I do think that people could use it for swim run, but I think from our experience, it's essentially like you'd have to figure out. It would take like practicing anything. Like you'd have to figure out how to do it. Like maybe if you're like maybe one of the things is just as you start transitioning way earlier. So you're putting your goggles on while you're running, and as soon as you can see the flag, then you set your bearing while you're going, and then you just do everything else as normal as you get to the water. I mean, there's ways where you could probably figure it out if swimming straight is a big deficiency for you. Like if you can't swim straight to save your life, wearing these during the swim run, your transitions will be slower, but you'll probably save like an hour or something, right? Just by being able to swim straight.
You won't swim in a
I think
zigzag.
I think
Yeah.
I think it does have an application, and maybe even like a safety application too. But again, if you got like a big old current, and you're gonna have to know to set your bearing somewhere else too. So I think people would just need to really train with it. I think to make it work in
Yeah.
the way to its maximum capabilities.
Yeah. I
Basically,
think the best use case is definitely the triathlon, like rectangle box swim or out and around and coming back. Like I think that's where it's really going to shine. Swim run
Mhm.
probably could make it work, but it would take a little bit. Did you get a chance to use it, Annie?
So all right. Yes, I tried to twice. And I don't know I don't know why, but I couldn't get it to calibrate. And I spent like the
Mm.
better part of an hour one day trying to get it to calibrate. And
Whoa.
because I really wanted to try it, right? And I don't think I was I mean, the directions are very straightforward. I can tell you them because I did them a lot. Tilt chin slowly toward chest. Tilt right ear towards shoulder. Tilt left ear towards shoulder. Spin in circle. And it kept resetting. It kept like I would get a certain way through that sequence and then it would start over. And then it just kept starting over. So anyhow, I didn't ever successfully get it to calibrate. So I have the V1 that I tested. Maybe it has to do with some update that I didn't do. I mean, you all know I've already said it.
Yeah, maybe you
The
can
like
update the
making sure that
firmware.
all of my like firmware and all that techie stuff is updated and compatible is not
Mhm.
my most fun or best skill set. So I probably messed something up, but I didn't get to try it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, A for effort, though.
I feel
Yeah.
like, yeah. Yeah, I think it's an Annie problem, not a Form Goggle problem.
Well, here's what we'll do. We'll get this resolved, and then we'll get like an update from you at a future Gear Talk, where we'll like
Yeah.
get your 2 cents on this, because I do think, as someone who swims in open water a lot, I'd love to get your perspective on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like I think to sum up sort of the swim run side of it, I think if you really want to use these, make sure you're prepared to use them. If you're trying to be expedient about things, it doesn't work around it if you got to do a dog leg. So if you got a swim run where you're kind of like swimming straight and going into a cove,
Like
gonna have to be creative, like
Austin.
like a Catalina or
Yeah.
Austin. Maybe you use it just to kind of keep you in the general vicinity or something.
Yeah. And I think there's there's another point as well, is that I have this is the only goggle I've been wearing in the pool. And, we've been swimming with this goggle since like, when did we get these, for Christmas?
Mm-hmm.
So like since like December. So 7 months. And I did switch them out for my regular goggles that I use without it. And it is pretty stark how expansive a field of vision that a regular goggle has compared to these.
Especially like open
Yes.
water.
An open water
goggle
style like goggle. I know, Annie, you like your big bug-eyed, Roca ones. Like, because I had been swimming so much in them, I was like, I got used to it. In the pool, there's no problem, right? You're just looking at the line. But out in open water, I was like, oh my God, like
There's a lot you miss.
there's really more to see here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think in terms of like also the nature of swim run and the nature of open water swimming, like you really do need to be more situationally aware and heads up when you're in the natural world, when you're out in nature, like being actually heads up is important. But I do want to try it. And the compromise I was able to do was not use the swim straight feature, but I just used metrics. Like I think I saw like a timer and stroke rate for each leg of my swim run.
Nice.
And it did, it irks me to admit it, but it kept me engaged in a different way. And I liked it. Like I was like, oh, like I'm engaged and it's cool. The field of vision is pretty small though. It's hard to see.
Yeah, that's a good point about the open water metrics, because you can also sync your Garmin up so you can get live metrics to your display. And as someone that I feel like sometimes, and this is common, I feel like, it's like, oh, my pool swim doesn't translate well to open water for pace or whatever. Like, I found it to be really helpful to like, oh, this is how fast I'm swimming, and to kind of gauge and recalibrate myself. So using the goggles in open water with more of the metrics and not with the swim straight piece, I did find to be very valuable. And from like a workout perspective, it's like, oh, we'll do like a 10-minute run and then a 5-minute swim. Like it was nice just to see the timer up there and kind of have my heart rate so I can really kind of gauge what my effort was from a metric standpoint there. So I did find that to be valuable for a training piece as well. Open water training.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
What else do we need to talk about? Are we ready to assign pull? But do we want to talk about fit and finish on the form goggles? The goggle function of these?
Yeah, we can talk about fit. I think it comes with a bunch of nose bridges, so you can adjust it. I wouldn't say like on a scale of 1 to 10 is definitely not a 10 on comfort. I don't find them to be super comfortable, but they're fine. I would probably give comfort maybe like a 7. And I'm sure just newer versions will just get even more comfortable as they kind of like keep making their technology smaller and whatnot. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like from a goggle, it's again,
it's a device on your face.
Yeah, it's a device on your face. It's like I put them on in the locker room and I like looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh yeah, these things are like kind of, they're definitely out there. they're kind of big and bulky,
like RoboCop
sort of thing. But again, like swimming in the pool, you just get really used to it, and I think very overwhelming. The swim experience outweighs the like, oh yeah, okay, it's a little bit uncomfortable on the goggle front.
Yeah,
like
from
sure. The actual goggle piece.
It's by no means for me a deal breaker.
No, yeah.
But yeah.
There are definitely
any thoughts on
goggles. There are goggles out there that are far less comfortable than this.
Oh, for sure.
Like the Swedes, to be honest.
Yeah. I have a
These
question.
Are
the goggles, not
the
general,
the
Swedes. We love the Swedes. They're lovely people.
Careful. We love the people. Careful, you guys. The goggles. My question.
Yeah, so
can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So you have trained so much with these in the pool, and then you would be, because this isn't actually something I have done a lot of, as much as you at least, for months. When you switch to not having the metrics in the heads-up display and having, your normal swimrun goggles, Chip, and you could just see what was around you, but you couldn't see any of that stuff. Did you feel like someone had stolen your left shoe, or like, did you feel disoriented by that? Or were you like, here we are again?
That's a good question. I have been on my way to the pool and I realized I forgot my form goggles at home. I have turned around to go back and get them because I didn't want to swim in the pool without them. So I'll just say that. But I will say when I went to open water, it was like kind of like just like riding a bike. It was like, oh yeah, okay. Like it was really easy to pick back up on the all natural way of swimming as opposed to the metrics.
Well, and I would add to that. So echo that 100%. I think the reason for that, Chipper, is because, we're swim running in our usual goggles and our usual stuff. So it also, that just in itself feels really natural. But yeah, I haven't used my, the ones that I use are the Aquasphere Cayenne compact size. And those things comfort wise are like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
So, they feel, it's nice to put them on because they're so much more comfortable. And as Chipper mentioned, like the visibility, those are open water, basically like triathlon.
Specialty goggles. Yeah.
Goggles. Like it's just so much better. But it's also like what I'm used to for swim running.
Yeah. Like these goggles are very much like a training tool. I feel like that's their highest and best use in swim run.
That's,
Yeah, and what a tool it is, I think. With that, should we get into our Louis rankings?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm
Chipper?
ready.
Okay. I know we frown upon fractional pull buoys.
No, you can do halves.
I was going to go to the 3/4.
Oh, okay.
No, can't do that. No, don't do that.
It's your show, man.
I would say my heart says 5 out of 5, but I am going to knock half a pull buoy off just for the sort of comfort and the from the actual goggle piece gets a minus a half pull buoy. Overall swim experience, 7 out of 5. Like it just, spectacular swim experience for myself. And then I'm very excited because, as the technology only gets smaller and smaller and cheaper, like they're just going to get better and better. And in 2 years, I could imagine they'll have a lot of these fit and form stuff figured out. But 4.5 for me. Annie?
Yeah, I'm
Just thinking
not
about it.
going to say what's already been said. You pretty much nailed it, Chipper. 4.5, because they're not perfect. There's still areas for improvement, and that is mostly in the like physical details of the product, the tech and the all the tech and the way that integrates with the swim experience is
Delightful.
above and beyond 5 pull buoys for sure. It's
Wow,
worth
Chris?
$220, and I don't say that lightly.
Wow.
Well,
It's
Amy, I
worth-
was just going to
yeah.
say that I find interesting that, we're not talking about the price until you just did.
Yeah.
Right?
Ah!
In our things. And yeah, because I think I agree. I'm actually going to give it 5 pull buoys. Because yes, while I don't think the fit is the greatest, it's also not a deal breaker for me. And I think because, as you guys mentioned, the training capabilities, the thoughtfulness that went into the app and the interface and everything, you can just tell. I mean, we interviewed one of the chief architects of this guy, Brian Johns. What was his title? A cool title.
Head of performance coaching
Yeah.
at Form Goggle.
So this guy, you could just tell that these programs are really well
He's
thought
Olympian,
out,
yeah.
and he's
he's a
trying to
former
help people
Olympian.
become better swimmers. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's
gets
trying to
it.
help people become better swimmers, and it's freaking working.
And okay, so like in terms of value that these deliver the value of being coached individually with the knowledge base of an Olympian. That for $220 and
essentially.
$15 a month to re-up is like an incredible value. Amazing.
Yeah, it is. I honestly, I can't imagine a swimming future for me. I feel like I'm already like lost. It's like
You're
cell
on
phones. Like I can't remember anyone's phone number except my mom's and my wife's, my own. I don't even know Chipper's
Not even
number.
mine?
I don't know Chipper's
What's
number.
the area code?
I don't even know.
I don't know
What's the
yours
Sacramento
either.
area code?
916.
916. Yeah. Don't even know.
Now, Annie had the Form 1 goggle that is the Form 2 goggles to $220. They're selling the Form 1 for, what is it, like $150 or $175?
Standby. 179.
$179. I would say if you're really trying to
2-year
save
warranty.
$75 and you're not so concerned about having the heart rate monitor and like a little bit
better fit,
I think you couldn't go wrong with the ones if you're trying to save a little bit on that.
Yeah, and again, I think a cool thing that Form did was they made the software work for both. So all the software updates work on both, which is just really, really great. I think the heart rate's interesting. I've never swam with heart rate except for the last couple months when we've had the Smart Swim 2s. It's interesting. It's interesting to know what it is.
I think.
What are you learning?
Well, it turns out that I'm just like kind of like a low heart rate swimmer.
Yeah. Well, I think swimming in general is kind of a low heart rate.
Which is probably good for Swimrun.
Just based on your body position and the compression of the water, like physiologically. Is anyone a high heart rate?
Yeah,
Chipper, are you a high heart rate swimmer?
I have my zones in there. I think, what is there coaching plans that are like more heart rate zone based?
I don't think
Maybe
I've
not
seen
yet.
that.
Maybe not yet.
Yeah, it's mostly like there's a bunch of triathlon stuff and
I do find it interesting to see, like, if you're doing a fast 50 or a fast 100, sort of the delay in the effort that you put out, and your heart rate is jacked at the end, but it takes a little bit to kind of get up there. So I found some of that stuff interesting, but I don't really do a ton with the heart rate data that I get, other than it being cool to kind of like see how your heart rate settles in.
Yeah, I don't train with
Where
heart
is
rate,
the
so I
heart-
just see it more as a novelty.
Where is is it an optical heart rate monitor somewhere on the goggle, or is it
On-
a paired
Yeah,
strap?
it's on like your
Whoa.
So it's kind of hidden
It has
on
like
behind
a
a strap.
it's like a little foot that sticks out from the inside, and it just goes right on your temple.
It's pretty slick.
Oh my gosh. That is really slick.
Yeah, it's cool.
And he's
Anyway, these
mulling
goggles
over.
are good. But okay, so we got 2 4.5 pull buoys. I'm giving it 5. Spite to fit. You guys, if we do the math on yours, it's still 5 out of 5, basically.
Right, because we
You're like,
actually
"Oh,
gave
7
him
out of 5
a
on
7.
just
We
gotta
actually gave him
average
a
it out."
7. Yeah.
That's true.
Exactly.
14 out of 15 total pull buoys, we'll just say. So that's scoring high marks.
Yeah, very high marks. We if you're looking to improve your swimming, you want to get some coaching, low level coaching, you want to like have a different swim experience, you want to not have to remember how many lengths you've swam or your yardage
That's
in any
beautiful.
way whatsoever. You don't want to have to count down from 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 for your next set. Can't recommend these highly enough.
It's a beautiful thing.
I would say if you want to focus on your swimming, and I'm not going to call this low level coaching. I think it's high level coaching. It's like movement analysis in the pool. Like Chipper, you were saying earlier, like you can't even really get that from someone on a pool deck. It's amazing. Don't like if you've ever thought, God, I wish I had a swim coach, get these goggles.
That's what they are, basically.
Mhm.
I think you just signed us off there, Annie. Or you have another bit of wisdom to drop.
Nope, that was it. Mic down.
All right. Well, it's been another great episode of Gear Talk. Always lovely having you on, Annie. And we are very much looking forward to seeing you at the Bellingham Swimrun in just a few weeks up in Bellingham, Washington.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me. See you then.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run,
And then a swim,
then another run,
then another swim.
then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of
too.
course, yes.